Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 28 of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. You know, I'm always excited about each episode of the show, but I'm extremely excited about today's show because my guest today is none other than Grandmaster Rorion Gracie. Of course, the person who started the original UFC and who was responsible for spreading Jiu-Jitsu throughout the United States and throughout the world. So very excited to be talking to him today. Let's start with a quote, and this is from Rorion Gracie. Once you learn to remain calm under the stressful circumstances of a fight, you will have no trouble remaining calm under the stressful circumstances of life. Again, Rorion Gracie. Great quote. Okay, in 2006, Grandmaster Rorion was inducted into the Black Belt Magazine's Hall of Fame and voted their Instructor of the Year for that year. So I thought we'd start off by playing a clip that talks about that accomplishment.
The eldest son of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu founder Rorion Gracie, Rorion Gracie continues to spread his family's legacy worldwide. However, as difficult as it may be to imagine now, Gracie wasn't always a household name. In 1978, Rorion Gracie moved to the U.S. from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and struggled to make ends meet, working primarily as an extra in movies and television. Despite struggling for 10 years, Gracie was determined to share his art and invited everyone he met to a free jiu-jitsu class. Gracie and his virtually unknown style slowly began to gather attention. In a 1987 issue of Playboy, he issued what became known as the Gracie Challenge, inviting anyone, regardless of style, weight, or reputation, to fight in a no-holds-barred match. A production assistant for the movie Lethal Weapon saw Gracie in a challenge match and hired him to choreograph Mel Gibson's fight scenes in the film. Because of such jobs and a steadily growing student base, Gracie's reputation as a world-class martial artist grew, and soon he would have to move his operation out of the garage and into a larger venue. In 1990, Gracie founded the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Torrance, California. Still unable to keep up with the influx of new students, the academy was expanded twice in the following years and now boasts a 15,000 square foot training center with different instruction rooms, an apparel store, a juice bar, and a museum dedicated to the Gracie family's history. In 1993, Gracie and his associate Art Davie created, financed, and produced the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Millions of viewers were convinced of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's effectiveness as Rorion's brother Royce beat the likes of Ken Shamrock and Gerard Gordeau, eventually going on to win 3 UFC titles. The Gracie name, already legendary in Brazil, had now become legendary in the United States. Rorion Gracie continues to teach at his academy and present seminars all over the world. In addition to his unique jiu-jitsu programs for children and adults, he developed a self-defense system exclusively for women called Women Empowered, as well as programs that focus on the specific needs of military personnel, law enforcement agencies, and air marshals. He has been awarded more than 100 recognition coins by the U.S. military and government agencies such as the FBI, the Department of Justice, the Army Rangers, the Air Force, and the United Nations Security Council. In addition, Jiu-Jitsu is a family affair among the Gracies, ensuring the Gracie style will live on for generations to come. For his business and educational innovations, as well as his ongoing dedication to sharing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with students all over the world, Black Belt is proud to induct Rorion Gracie into the Black Belt Hall of Fame as the 2006 Instructor of the Year.
Okay, and even though that was from 2006, it's a major accomplishment for Grandmaster Rorion, one of the many that he's accomplished during his very interesting life. I just can't say enough about the level of respect I have for Grandmaster Rorion Gracie. He was the person who came up with the original UFC concept. He conceptualized it, he brought it to reality, and he started a revolution, a martial arts revolution that spread throughout the United States as well as throughout the world. He completely changed the martial arts landscape in the United States and the world. Up until now, most people's concept of a fight, a real fight, was what we saw in movies. We saw a lot of the karate and kung fu type moves and those kind of action films, which are very entertaining. I still like to watch them. But that original UFC opened everyone's eyes as to what can really happen in a fight, and that it's imperative that you have the ground skills, the jiu-jitsu, to prevail. If it wasn't for Rorion Gracie, there would be no modern MMA as it is today. Even though the UFC that he started, the original version, was much different than it's evolved into today, it never would have happened had he not had that vision, had he not set it in motion, had he not taken up the torch and got it all started. He literally dropped the pebble in the pond, so to speak, and started the ripple that spread throughout the world. At this stage in his life, he has another mission. His passion, his purpose, his calling, if you will, and his new mission is the Gracie diet and spreading the Gracie diet. Many of you know that he has written a book on the subject, which is an awesome book. And we're going to get into talking about the Gracie diet quite a bit in the interview as well. After the interview, stay tuned for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And without further ado, here's Grandmaster Rorion Gracie. Okay, I'm here at the world-famous Gracie Academy with the legendary Grandmaster Rorion Gracie. So thank you so much for being with us today, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So you were the one who brought Jiu-Jitsu to the United States by starting the UFC and producing the original Gracie instructional videos. And you essentially started a Jiu-Jitsu revolution that spread throughout the United States and throughout the world. Did you ever envision having such a huge impact on the world?
When I left Brazil with the dream of sharing Jiu-Jitsu with the rest of the world, I knew the idea was eventually going to be accepted. Because here in America, people like what's good. And ultimately, you can only keep something as beneficial and important and significant as Jiu-Jitsu down for so long. So the idea of sharing the knowledge and teaching classes initially out of my garage and having those hundreds of challenge matches I had in my garage, it was just a way to kind of, pave the way to eventually get to where we are today. Now, what I could not have predicted is, of course, the technology evolution or revolution that we've had, that now you have the internet and you have the whole world talking about that. I could not anticipate that. But I knew for sure it was going to be a world-changing journey, and I'm extremely proud of being able to start that and accomplish what I did.
What an awesome thing to know deep in your heart that it was going to be big, but not even envisioning it with the technology, so not knowing how big, but knowing in your heart that eventually it's going to be there. And you knew that long before it happened. That had to feel pretty cool.
Yeah, I knew. I had no doubt in my mind. I was 100% sure. It was just a question of how do I find a way to make more people see this. Started in my garage, like I said, a little challenge match for my students to see, and people would show up from different styles, like karate, kung fu, taekwondo, to challenge me all the time. And of course, I would announce to my students and bring them together. There was an excitement there. And my question was, how do I show this to more and more people, And this was a blessing indeed.
What was the most interesting part or aspect of those garage days when you had all that going
on? Interesting. Well, I have always been very sure. I was very confident that I was going to have a major impact. But for people that come up and first, I got acquainted with, and people that first met, for them, for a lot of people, when I said, well, we're going to change the world, the idea sounded, what is this guy thinking? Well, who the heck does he think he is? Right. He's from Brazil, he barely knows how to speak English, and then he's got his martial art, which is kind of good, but from here to change the world, this guy must be nuts.
That's a big statement, right?
Yeah, and then, to know that, and I was sure of that, I had no doubt in my mind whatsoever. And now I look back in hindsight, and people say, you know what, there was something about the way you said it that I just had to somehow at least respect the way you said it. Say, man, this guy's got so much certainty. He's so sure of what he's talking about. Maybe he's got something going here. And as I talk to friends of mine from 20, 30, almost 35 years ago, they say, I knew it. I knew you were going to do it, because the way you said it was just too right. It was too powerful. So I think it was exciting to be able to foresee that kind of thing, like you said, ahead of everybody else. It was an exciting trip. It was an exciting experience.
Absolutely. And when you developed the UFC concept and seeing how it turned out, are you content with how it went? If you were doing it again today, is there anything you would do differently with that whole thing?
No, I did it exactly the way I wanted it, and that's in fact the reason why I left. Because after the first, when Royce fought Dan Severn on UFC 4, we had a 2-hour window for pay-per-view transmission. And the show went out for 2 hours and 3 minutes. So a lot of people did not see the end of the fight. It was interrupted. And then, even though Royce won and we had to play the show again, we had to refund a lot of money. It was a big, probably I heard the biggest, mishap in pay-per-view history. And so, because the main thing was a real fight being televised. For my partners, was a television show about fighting. So we're looking from two different aspects, from two different sides of the periscope, and which I understand their point of view. There has to be a show, it has to be a certain amount of time, it has to be planned a certain way. But when that match happened on UFC 4, that the show went up and the whole thing got disconnected and a lot of people could not see the end of the show, we kind of saw that this could never happen again, because it would be fatal for the event. So my partners decided to implement time limits on the fight and judges and that kind of thing. And I told them at the time that if you put time limits, you're going to change the dynamic of the fight. It's no longer going to be a real fight. Originally, as you recall, there was no time limits, no points, no judges, no gloves, no weight classes. It was just two guys walk in and one guy walks out, which is a real fight, which is what I was trying to exactly exemplify, to see in those raw conditions what would be the ultimate form of self-defense. And Jiu-Jitsu proven to be it.
Absolutely.
So, with that said, the fact that now we have a time constrictions, we can't let a thing go on and on and on, and just like I said, my partner decided to implement time limits. I believed, and I was right, that if you put time limits now, you're going to impact the dynamic of the fight. Well, how are you going to do that? If you put time limits in a 5-minute round, for example, you can't expect a little guy to defeat a big guy in 5 minutes. By the time they get tired on the time the big guy gets tired, the 5 minutes are up. So the chance that the little guy has against someone bigger is to be able to maneuver himself in such a way, wait for the big guy to get tired so that he can then turn the fight around and win the match, like Royce did many times.
Right.
But you have to wait for the big guy to get tired. In a 5-minute round, that's not going to work. So because of that now, you have to also find ways to match people in the same weight class to make it fair. And if you have people in the same weight class, what happens if a person does not defeat the other one? Now you need judges to determine who threw more kicks, who threw more punches, or whatever. It becomes another element on the whole decision-making process. And with that said, what happens if you get a person who's got the other one on a perfect choke, which would render the guy unconscious in 6 seconds.
Right.
And at 3 seconds, the bell rang. He now has to let go of the choke, which in a real life, in a real fight, he would not do that. The guy who was going to get choked out was set free technically by the clock. He goes back to his corner, drinks a little water, rests a little bit, comes back, and sometimes ends the fight, wins the fight.
Right.
So it changed everything. Because of that is what I decided to sell my interest on the company. I stepped away. And like I said before, I don't regret it one bit, because I know that at least when I was involved was one certain level of reality to it. Absolutely. Now it's an entertainment show, which is, pleases me very much. Sure. That it keeps growing. It's a success. It's the fastest growing sport in the world. I'm very proud of being planted the seed that originated that.
Right.
But I'm not sad that I'm not involved.
Sure.
What inspired me to create the event to begin with was not the money that could potentially be generated from this. Was the idea of proving a point, was the idea of educating the masses to what's the best form of self-defense, and I'm 100% sure that I was able to do that with Jiu-Jitsu.
And you certainly did that without question.
Yeah.
And opened the eyes to the whole world. So what was it like, taking you back just a little bit, what was it like growing up with your brothers, Hickson, Hoyler, Helson, Hoyson, the rest of them?
Well, my father was like a general. A general is determined or measured by the kind of army he has around him. And having us train Jiu-Jitsu, practice all the time, it was just a very competitive environment where everybody's always training and getting ready, and it was just wild. That and what do we eat and how do we train, that's the only thing that mattered, a very Spartan lifestyle. But ultimately paid off, because now you have Gracies all over the place teaching this stuff and sharing their knowledge, and some's teaching a little more this way, some teaching more that way, but bottom line is that we're all pushing the boat in the same direction.
What would you say the most important lesson you've learned through Jiu-Jitsu and the most important lesson you learned from your father was?
From my father, I think he taught me that all things happen for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. There's nothing that is coincidence. And even the difficult times and the hard times, all those are for the learning, for the spiritual growth of the individual. Mm-hmm. And from Jiu-Jitsu, it was the idea of keeping cool under pressure. Because when you're sparring with anybody, especially with your brothers, all they want to do is choke you out. Brothers and cousins and so forth. So if you can find yourself dealing with a situation where someone is trying to literally choke you out and catch you on your hand lock or something like that, and you can remain calm to find the right way to deal with that and to avoid getting caught or be able to escape from this or that attack, it's just nothing but a metaphor to the difficulties you have to face in life. That's what life is about. You have problems. So everybody's got a whole bunch of problems. I see those as people trying to attack you from different angles,
Absolutely.
And if you can remain calm, understand that this is all part of the master plan and teaching you how to deal with that kind of stuff. So between Jiu-Jitsu's physical approach of literally on the mat rolling with someone who's trying to finalize you on the spot, and the old man's idea of understanding that dealing with difficulty is just part of life, all that was a good combination. So I think that was an interesting way to get me ready and set for what was to come.
Perfect. Well, everybody listening will know about your father. Can you share any information or any stories about your mother?
My mom was an amazing woman, put up with everything she had to satisfy my dad's expectations of raising a group of men that could eventually, I don't know if he was thinking about that, but ultimately the people that he raised helped to change the world. So she was a very classy woman. She was a very determined. She was a very loving woman. And just like I said, dedicated to do everything she could to make the family as strong as she could.
Sounds like a special lady.
Indeed, yes. In fact, we had a house on the outskirts of Rio, in Teresópolis, which is this place right here that you can see at the Gracie Museum, with 21 bedrooms and 18 bathrooms. And she ran that place like a 5-star hotel, wow. Making sure the meals are all prepared according to the Gracie diet. We had 18 uniformed employees that worked at the house. The employees alone had 14 children.
Wow.
So if there's nobody on the compound, there's 32 people over there working and just doing what they have to do. We counted one time 37 children, all relatives staying there for a summer vacation. And to have 3 or 4 dozen of adults between relatives and guests was not uncommon. So between the employers and their kids, the family children, and the family adults and friends, sometimes we have over 100 people staying in the compound.
That's incredible.
Like I said, she would take care of the whole thing, like a 5-star hotel, where you would wake up in the morning and use an in-house telephone to call the kitchen, and the maid would bring you breakfast in bed, like a very,
nice.
fancy operation. She would prepare the Christmas events and decorate the house and the Christmas parties and stuff. It was just incredible experience. Growing up like that, people that knew that, it's unforgettable. The people that did not know what it was all about, is just, we never can imagine what it is.
Wow. Talk about the essence of efficiency.
100%, yes.
All right. So tell us what, you obviously have a very interesting life and have lived a very interesting life. But what's it like for you today? Take us through a typical day in the life of Rorion Gracie.
I wake up early in the morning, take my younger sons. I have 10 kids. The 3 youngest ones live with me. So I wake up in the morning, make breakfast for everybody, and then drop the kids at school, and usually check out, minor things around the house that need to be done, then come to the academy, spend, the rest of the morning around here, sometimes teach a class, go into math, get choked out by some of the tough students we have here, and then I go back home for lunch, and when I can, I'll take a 15 to 30-minute nap, and then either go back to the academy or just spend some time doing some other work related to the fact that I'm now focusing on promoting the concepts of the Gracie diet,
Absolutely.
lectures and seminars around the world on that end.
Wonderful, wonderful. And talking with the Gracie diet, I know that I've heard you quoted that if you had to choose between jiu-jitsu and the diet, you would choose the diet. It's that important to you. And a few minutes ago, you told me it's your mission. So let's talk about the diet. For a lot of the listeners will be somewhat familiar with it, but some may not. So if you would just start with kind of an overview of what it is, the basic concepts and that kind of thing.
Uncle Carlos, my father's older brother, the first guy to learn jiu-jitsu in the Gracie family, realized early on the important connection between good performance and good health. He saw that because him and his brothers, in their mid-20s, accepting challenge matches against everybody to prove that, you have to be ready to fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. That's how they were able to establish jiu-jitsu back in Brazil. He saw that if you have a stomach ache or a headache or a toothache, that would take away from your focus if you had a match to do, okay? So tomorrow you have to do an interview and you have a grain of rice in your shoe, that grain of rice is going to get the focus from the interview. You're going to be thinking about little grain of rice on your shoe the whole time.
Right.
Same thing is if you have heartburn. If you have a challenge match tomorrow, you have heartburn, even though you take a medicine, it's not the same thing. Mm-hmm. So he started focusing on how to eat so that you can avoid all these little discomforts that so many people think that it's part of everyday life. Mm. People feel good one day, not so good the other day. You eat something today, you're okay. Something else you eat, you get a little heartburn, or you spend a couple of days without going to the bathroom, or something that causes you a headache, or something that causes you to gain weight. So people just think that ups and downs is the way it should be, but it's not. Uncle Carlos, through his studies, which last 65 years, came to amazing conclusions on the subject that if you combine your foods properly at each meal, your body will work perfectly as it should. Which is the most perfect machine in the universe is the human body.
If we get out of its way and stop hindering its
as long as if you don't mess it up.
Yeah.
That's right. Think about this. You have a bite of a sandwich and you just swallow that and you forget it. But the body has to break that stuff down, literally make the food travel to the walls of your intestine so that it can be absorbed and the nutrients dispatched to the right places to make your hair grow, to make your nails grow, to heal a cut that you might have on your arm, to make your body grow and be healthy. So there's a whole array of elements and actions that take place just because of that sandwich that you ate. So if we are more careful with what we choose to eat, the body is going to have the ability to perform at its best. And that's the trick. Yes. So like I said, Uncle Carlos spent 65 years studying that and then had that knowledge on his head. By the end of those 65 years, he had 4 sheets of paper that said this food should go with that food and this group of food should not mix with that group of food. 4 sheets of paper, literally. So I came to America, first in '69, struggled a little bit, spent a year here, ups and downs, and then went back to Brazil, went to law school, and then after law school in 1978, I decided to come to America with the objective of teaching jiu-jitsu or sharing the knowledge of jiu-jitsu with the rest of the world. So I put some mats in my garage and I started doing what I could. It was, like I said, it was a dream for me to share the knowledge of jiu-jitsu. But after the whole thing happened, the UFC exploded, and the whole thing is just kind of taking over the world. Everybody now does jiu-jitsu. Everybody knows that without jiu-jitsu, you can't even think about venturing an MMA fight, because if you don't know enough grappling, you're in trouble. So once that once that dream was fulfilled, and now we have jiu-jitsu all over the world, it's crazy. My sons came up with the concept of a GracieUniversity.com, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Of course. GracieUniversity.com. For you to have an idea, the United Nations has 193 countries affiliated to it. Gracie University has 196 countries affiliated to it. We're welcome in more countries than the United Nations. It's wild, Great. Over 100,000 students and stuff. So the bottom line is this thing has exploded. And I am now in a position to think, well, my dream is fulfilled. Now what? So about 3.5 years ago, I had an epiphany. I was, early in the morning, laying in bed, and then I heard that voice or that sound that said, it's the health. So it dawned on me that it was time for me to write a book about the Gracie diet. So which I did. And based on the concept that I learned from my Uncle Carlos, my experience as a father, as a teacher, and so I put the whole thing together in a very simple, little book available at GracieDiet.com. And then I put the book out, and it was an incredible impact. It was an amazing result because people started having access to the information. Besides those 4 sheets that Michael Carlos created, of course I have that same original concept on the book, but I explained on how to how much you can, what kind of steps one should take to gradually change from your current eating habits into the best eating habits you're going to have, which is combining your foods properly. So it's a step-by-step process, and through the book, I've had amazing positive response from everybody who tries it, say, hey, it's changed my life like nothing else and that kind of thing. So when I tell you that I believe jiu-jitsu is amazing, is very important, but the diet for me is more important than jiu-jitsu, which I still feel that same way, it's because it doesn't do me any good to be able to choke everybody I know and then have a heart attack at 60.
It's true.
Who cares?
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Right,
you want to be able to have a healthy, long life, and that's what counts.
Absolutely. And a lot of people in this country get really worked up about war or different things like that because of all the lives that are lost. But if you look at the real numbers of people that have lost through bad health, heart attacks and things like that can be prevented every year, it doesn't compare at all. I mean, this is such a major thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it definitely needs to be addressed, and I'm glad you were doing it. One of the things, when we talked about kind of getting out your body's own way of doing of working like it should, if you eat something, and the current kind of fitness thought out there, or popular notion, is to eat very frequent meals to keep your blood sugar regulated. So that's been kind of a big thing out there, and but if you eat something and your body hasn't even digested it, and you go and eat something again, it just makes your body work that much harder. So one of the principles of the diet is to space your meals out, correct?
100%. Yeah, the 3 basic concepts of the Gracie diet are, number 1, you have to space your meals at least 4.5 to 5 hours apart, exactly to allow your body to completely digest a meal before you put something else in your stomach. So that's number 1, space your meals at least 4.5 to 5 hours apart. The concept number 2 is every time you have cooked food, something that is prepared with oil or butter or fat, like, pasta or a pizza or some risotto, vegetables, meat, fish, whatever you eat, when you eat food like that, what we call cooked food, you should not have dessert. Sugar and fat do not combine well together. So not even a fruit. But then you might ask, isn't fruit good for you? Yes, fruit is very good for you, but not if you mix with fat or oil. So number 1, space your meals at least 4.5 to 5 hours apart. You can space more than 5 hours, but never less than 4.5 or 5 hours.
Okay.
Number 1. Number 2 is when you eat cooked food, you should not have dessert, not even a fruit. And the concept number 3 is that we should only eat 1 starch per meal. So if you have bread, you should not have potato. If you have rice, you should not have beans, and so forth. Hamburger and French fries is a horrible combination because bread of the hamburger should not be mixed with the French fries. It's better for you to eat 2 hamburgers or 2 bags of French fries, right, and the patty, the meat, but no bread.
Okay. Because they hinder each other's absorption and...
Well, I don't know scientifically how it works. Michael Carlos came up with a whole bunch of stuff on this Gracie diet. I'm glad you talked about this, that I can't scientifically explain because he was not a doctor. He just came up based on practical experience and literally using his family as guinea pigs, you know.
Right.
Uncle Carlos had 21 kids. My dad had 9 kids. And he used us as a little rat laboratory, laboratory rats.
Yeah.
And then, but the results are just incredible. The way he came up with the conclusions, even though, like I said, he was not a doctor,
Right.
the result had been nothing just short and mind-blowing, you know.
Yeah, well, the proof's in it, right? I mean,
Absolutely, yeah.
There are probably some people who say, well, it's not based on scientific principles, it hasn't been tested, but if you look at the people that follow it,
Yeah,
you know, they're vibrant, they're healthy, they're living well.
Yeah, it's an empirical study which cannot be dismissed. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The fact that the results speak for themselves is something that he can't not be ignored. Uncle Carlos lived until he was 94 years old, and my father lived until he was 95 years old. In fact, the last time I saw my dad, he was 94 and a half. 6 months before he passed away, I went to visit him on his ranch in Brazil. And once I got there, he gave me a kiss and said, hold on, let's go on the mat. I want to show you a new choke I'm working on. And we went on the mat and he kicked my butt at 94 years old.
Awesome.
That's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be. You're
Indeed,
right. That's
yes.
the way I want it to be for me. So.
Good. Start today.
All right. I know a lot of people that are interested in this, you know, who embrace the concepts that this will lead to a healthier life, but may have trouble transitioning or being able to do it perfectly. What do you have to say to those people?
This is a great question because a lot of people say, you know what, I read the book, I tried the diet, but it's too hard, I quit. These people, the same way you're learning a martial, let's say you're a student of Jiu-Jitsu, right? And you go to a class and you learn a new move, and then by the end of the class you spar with someone and somebody catches you in a choke or an armbar. Do you quit? No, you don't.
Quit.
You don't quit. You just come back next week or the same class and say, listen, what did I do wrong? Fix that mistake and you do it again. The fact that you got caught on the arm lock or you learn a new technique that you don't have the perfect execution for the technique yet doesn't mean you should quit. It just means that you got to practice a little more. So for the people that think about getting into this, and the first recommendation, of course, is get the book. You know, at gracieacademy.com, just order the book, read the book. You know, it's a weekend read, easy read, simple stuff. And it's got amazing little tips in there. But anyways, you get the book, and in the book, I'm going to show you a step-by-step process on how to do that. I know that people are going to try, and sometimes they're going to mess up, and they're going to fail this, they're going to fail that, but it's all included in the book. It's all part of the learning process. It has to be seen that way. You walk, and then you trip, and then you get up, and you walk again, and you trip, and you get up again. The trick is, as you keep doing this, and even though you might skip a meal correctly, you mix the wrong one day, as you keep doing it and always reminding yourself, oh, I messed up here, oh, it's okay, I'm going to go back and do it again. That mindset, that willingness to always get and do it again correctly, that's the key, is the not giving up concept. That's what it is. This is what it is. That's what life is all about. It doesn't matter how many times you fall, it's how many times you're willing to get up, right? So that's the whole idea. So you're going to try to start the Gracie diet. In the beginning, it might be a little confusing, even though the book is very clear explanation, facilitates the process tremendously. When you start doing it, and even though if you mess up today, it's okay. Just the next day you start again, you keep doing it again. And you don't have to change everything overnight. I don't expect anybody to change everything overnight because your habits are the most difficult thing to change. This is important because it's crucial that you learn to develop good habits because they're just as hard to change as the bad habits.
Yeah.
So if you develop the good habits, you'll be in great shape. Food is something so powerful. It's something so culturally ingrained in all of us.
That's true.
That, you know, great grandmother used to teach our grandma, grandma teach our mom teaches us. We're probably going to teach our kids what we like to eat. You go to your mom, she knows your favorite food. The truth is sometimes the favorite food is not the best food for you.
That's true.
Just because it tastes good doesn't mean it's good for you. The guy who's hooked on crack cocaine loves it, but it's killing himself.
It's a great point.
The person that smokes enjoys the cigarette, but it's killing themselves. So just because it's good doesn't mean it's good for you. Now, when people say, well, if you stop eating my favorite food, what am I going to do with my life if I don't enjoy eating so much? I'm telling you, all of you right now, if your favorite food takes you to a 10 on the pleasure meter, to a 10 being the best, my favorite food takes me to a 10 as well. Don't think that my measure meter maximum is at that 6.
Right.
I enjoy my food as much as you enjoy yours. The difference is you might feel sick afterwards, after your meal, and I never feel sick after my meal.
There it is.
That's the trick.
That's the trick. That's the trick. So mainly, you just made me think of a story about just
passing on traditions without even thinking about it. You know, there's a story of a lady who was cutting off the ends of her ham that she was cooking, and her husband said, why do you cut off the ends of your ham on both ends every time? She goes, you know, I'm not sure. That's the way my mom always did it. And so she went and asked her mom, you know, why do you always cut off the ends of the ham? She goes, well, that's how my mom did it. So she went and asked, I think went all the way back to the great-grandmother, and found out they had a stove that was too small to accommodate the whole thing, so they had to cut off the ends of the ham. So then it's been pushed down for generations, but we do that, you know, with everything. That's the way it's been.
Yes.
But
and to re-educate yourself is a very difficult thing to do, but it has to be done. It has to be done for your own sake, because you can't afford not to be healthy. We all know people. We all know people that are getting older, you know, and as they get older, they start to deteriorate. Mm-hmm. They're getting older. They can't walk as well. They can't do the things they used to do, you know. And sometimes you don't have to be very old, but you just to a certain 60s and 70s, you can just barely do much.
Yes.
And which is unfortunate. But the bottom line is this: we have to start now, today, fixing how we're going to be 10 years from now.
Yes.
It doesn't start 10 years from now, it starts today.
That's so true.
You're going to be a result 10 years from now. You're going to suffer the consequence of your choices today. So if you start thinking about what you're eating today, even if not the Gracie diet, next time you go to a place to eat, say, is this stuff good for me? Mm-hmm. Does that sauce mixed up in there in that salad, do I even know what that is? If you chop newspaper very small, mix up in your salad and put some heavy-duty sauce and stuff in there, you know, yep. Thousand Island and all that mustard, all that kind of stuff in there, and mustard and everything else. Mm-hmm. You don't even know what you're eating paper.
That's true.
You just get lost in there. So you're just going for the excitement
true.
of the taste. Don't do that.
That's
Learn
true.
to like the foods in their natural state. Learn to like the foods that are good for you. That's the key.
True. Once you've gotten away from having so much sugar and salt in your diet, like in most of the food, if you go back and try to eat some of that, it's like, wow, I never thought this was so salty or sugary. Right. But your taste buds are reawakened, right?
That's right.
That's big. That's big. You know, it's such a norm in our society that as you get 60, 70, or beyond, you're taking 10 medications and you can't hardly walk and all this stuff, and that doesn't have to be the reality, right? If you take care of yourself and really pay attention to what and how you put things in your body.
My father was passed away at 95, was not even taking not even aspirin, nothing. Nice. Zero.
Nice.
That's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be, for sure. What about someone who is concerned about, you know, do you do juicing and things like that?
I do that, yeah.
So what about if someone's diabetic or just worried about that amount of sugar? Is there anything that they should be thinking about with that?
Well, what happens is, you know, a lot of people become diabetic because of their wrong eating habits. The kind of sugar I'm talking about is the fruit sugar. You know what I'm saying? It's the fructose.
Yes.
It's not the refined white sugar that you find in a glass of Coca-Cola. It's got 12 spoons of sugar in there. That's not it. It's a completely different thing. So the people that are diabetic, for example, of course, under medical guidance, they'll never tell them to get otherwise, but they should read the book, and within the concept of combining the foods, eliminate the foods that would cause them to have a problem with the diabetes. Mm-hmm. But you can still combine your foods right. Okay. I have a lot of people that have had diabetes and a variety of other diseases, and they just by combining the foods right, the body responds much better, and they feel a lot better. And in many cases, have changed their completely position on that, and some of them have stopped being diabetic at all because of that.
Excellent, excellent. So, like how you said, breaking habits and everything, we have somewhat of a homeostasis in our, whether it's good or bad, right? Mm-hmm. If you're used to doing bad things, it's so. What I'm trying to say is we need to expect that there's going to be resistance of our body when we start changing something.
Yes.
But I like the point you made that just because you don't do it perfectly right away doesn't mean to stop. You keep going forward, you keep applying, and even if it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, you keep moving in the right direction. Eventually you get better and better and better, like anything else. So that's a great point. I know a lot of people will appreciate hearing that. Anything else you want to discuss about the diet?
Well, like I said, changing one's eating habits is a huge challenge. And I know that. I wrote the book thinking about that. But what we have to do is have to change the concept, the way you look at food. Your perception of food must be different. That's the big trick. Mm-hmm. Instead of looking at food as a way to stuff yourself and enjoy the pleasure of enjoying that bite, it feels so good, that's what it is. That momentary pleasure. Mm-hmm. You have to look at food as something that is going to help you to have a long, healthy life. That's the key. You don't see a gorilla, a silverback gorilla, up in the mountains in Africa, walking around needing metamuscle so he can go to the bathroom. Or walking around complaining about a headache. There's no such a thing.
Right.
Or constipated, not being able to go to the bathroom, whatever. You don't see that. With a heartburn. They eat a very specific diet, oriented to them by nature or God or whatever you want to call it. They eat that food, that's it.
It's true.
You don't see 10,000 zebras on the savannah running next to each other, one huge fat one and a skinny one next to each other. I got to exercise to lose weight. There's no such a thing.
That's true.
They are all healthy, look exactly the same, or it's the dry season, they're all skinny because there's not enough food. But it's a standardized process. Same thing, they have specific food, specific eating habits to eat certain foods to nourish their body, not to stuff their faces.
Absolutely.
Humans are the only animals that eat for the pleasure of eating. And there's a consequence to eating for the pleasure of eating. There's a lot of people there who do not have the weight problem, are skinny, say, I don't have a weight problem, but they have heartburn that's killing them every day. The other ones got migraine headaches every day. I'm here to tell you that if you eat right, all those things are going to disappear. You follow the Gracie diet for 2 weeks and forget heartburn, forget headaches, forget all that stuff.
Powerful.
Why should you have a headache? Because you're thinking too much? Your head was made to think.
Right.
You don't spend more hours a day thinking than me. We got 24 hours, everybody.
Yep.
There's no moment that you're spending out, your head is empty with nothing in it. No, we all have issues, we all have things we have to deal with, but I don't have headaches ever. Why is it? Because they come here. Why don't I have stomach aches ever, heartburn ever? Nothing like this. It's because the food is coming down right. That's the trick. So for people to understand that this is what really matters. It's not the bite that I take that tastes so good that becomes the priority. The flavor of that bite is not the determining factor why I should eat the food. It's not the flavor, it's the consequence of that food.
And half the time it's not the flavor of the food that they're eating, it's the stuff that's put on it.
Yes, so the sugar and the oil and the fat.
Everything else
they do it on purpose just to get your body thinking that it's delicious, but it's not. It's killing you. McDonald's, Ronald McDonald, he's not caring about your health. That's the last thing in the world he cares about your health. He gets you the cheapest meat, the cheapest everything in there, the cheapest quality of everything. When he sells a hamburger for 99 cents a hamburger, he's making a killing, literally, on that.
Literally.
He doesn't care about your health. He's laughing his way to the bank.
That's true.
And people, because it's convenient, I'm in a hurry, I got to eat something quick, let's go to McDonald's. This is crazy, fast food. Forget it. Out of the question.
It really is.
So it's just a wake-up call to everybody out there. GracieDiet.com, please give yourself a chance. You owe your body that. See your body as a temple that was given to us by the Creator. And you have the responsibility of taking care of it. You can't abuse it. Throw junk inside, smoke, use drugs, get drunk. This is not the right thing to do. You're abusing the machine. You're abusing the temple. It is your responsibility to protect it so it lasts long and does good for you. Because there will be a price to pay. Take care of it now, or you're going to pay later for sure. I'm here to tell you that.
That's the perfect way to say it, too.
In the Facebook page, GracieDiet.com, you check that out, become a friend of us, and ask me questions. I'm the one that personally answers all the questions. Fantastic. So get a hold of me to GracieDiet.com Facebook page, and then or Gracie Diet Facebook page, or the website, GracieDiet.com. I'm here to help. I can't wait to change the world again.
Fantastic.
Like I said.
I know you will.
Like I said, coming to America to share the idea of Jiu-Jitsu for me was a dream. 35 years later, I know that everything I've done in terms of Jiu-Jitsu was to build a platform of credibility and recognition for the Gracie name so I can do my real work. Sharing the knowledge of the Gracie diet is not a dream, it's a mission. So I'm much more excited and much more committed to this than I was when I did the Jiu-Jitsu thing 35 years ago.
Wow, that's big.
Good?
That's big.
All right.
Well, I can't say just how much respect I have for you and just how much I appreciate you taking time to talk with me and our listeners. I wish you continued success, long life, and continued health, sir. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Bye, everybody.
Okay, so really enjoyed doing that interview. Again, Master Rorion Gracie is an incredible person who's had such an awesome impact on martial arts in our country and through the world. So it was just really great. I appreciate his graciousness and sitting down with me to do that interview. After the interview, he and I talked for a while, and he kind of challenged me to do the Gracie diet. And I've always tried to eat very healthy and try to take care of myself, and it's always been a very big priority of mine too, and especially as I get older, even more so, I think. Especially for my kids, I want to be around and I want to be vibrant and healthy for them for many, many years to come as they grow up. But I will say, as I get older, it's been harder to maintain, the ideal body weight and that kind of thing. So I definitely have struggled with that, keeping some of the weight off, especially in the last few years. So I've dabbled with the Gracie diet several times here and there over the past several years, but never fully committed to it and never did it, just full bore. So I decided about 2 weeks ago to just really jump in and do it full force. So in the past 2 weeks, I can't say I've done it perfectly. I can't say I've combined everything perfectly at every meal, but I will say probably 95% of the time I have done it as it should be. I've also done a lot of juicing as part of it, and I'm happy to say that in 2 weeks I'm down 9 pounds, and my energy is through the roof. I definitely feel a difference in the energy. So I'll keep you posted on how it goes. Do plan to keep doing it. I'm striving for progress, not perfection, but I am happy that I'm doing it. So again, thank you, Master Rorion, for the inspiration. And thanks again to him for just everything he's done and the influence he's been on me, the positive influence he's had on my life, and bringing jiu-jitsu and planting the seed and getting it all going. So thanks. Okay, stay tuned for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Okay, time for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it will achieve. Dream great dreams and make them come true. Do it now. You are unique. In all the history of the world, there was never anyone exactly like you. And in all the infinity to come, there will never be another you. Never affirm self-limitations. What you believe yourself to be, you are. To accomplish great things, you must not only act, but also dream. Not only plan, but also believe. If you've built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. Put foundations under them. Yes, you can. Believing is magic. You can always better your best. You don't know what you can do until you try. Nothing will come of nothing. If you don't go out on a limb, you're never going to get the fruit. There's no failure except in no longer trying. Hazy goals produce hazy results. Clearly define your goals, write them down, make a plan for achieving them, set a deadline, visualize the results, and go after them. Just don't look back unless you want to go that way. Defeat may test you, it need not stop you. If at first you don't succeed, try another way. For every obstacle, there is a solution. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. The greatest mistake is giving up. Wishing will not bring success, but planning, persistence, and a burning desire will. There is a gold mine within you from which you can extract all the necessary ingredients. Success is an attitude. Get yours right. It is astonishing how short a time it takes for very wonderful things to happen. Now, go make it happen. And that's going to do it for this episode of the show. Hope you've enjoyed listening, and as always, if you are enjoying it, please give us feedback. Let us know that. Also, if you have suggestions, we're always open for those as well. Please take a moment to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, as well as go to iTunes and rate the show, and go ahead and subscribe. Please help us spread the word to your friends, anybody you think that would be interested in the show. And again, thanks for your support. As always, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.